All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions you can possibly ask. What is our universe actually made of? I mean, when you get down to the absolute, most fundamental level. This is a question that doesn't just challenge scientists, it pushes the very limits of what we think we know, and it sparked a huge debate in physics today. So, what's all the fuss about? Well, it really boils down to this. Is the very fabric of reality smooth and continuous, kind of like a perfect sheet of silk? Or is it something else? What if you could zoom in way, way further than any microscope could ever go? Would you find that reality is actually pixelated, like made of tiny individual dots, just like the screen you're looking at right now? Okay, so let's explore that second idea first, this idea of a pixelated universe. It's a wild thought, right? The concept is that reality isn't smooth at all. Instead, it's built out of these countless indivisible little units. We're talking about the absolute smallest things that could possibly exist. And look, this isn't just some wacky sci-fi idea. It's actually the central concept behind some really serious theories in physics, with the most famous one being loop quantum gravity. This theory suggests that the very fabric of existence, space-time itself, is quantized, which is just a fancy way of saying it's pixelated, made up of these incredibly unimaginably small units. But here's the thing with physics. For any new idea to be taken seriously, it has to be able to answer the tough questions. It's got to hold up under pressure. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put this whole pixel theory to the test by asking 5 really fundamental questions that, so far, it just can't answer. All right, let's jump right in. Question number 1. So, if the universe is just a grid of space-time pixels, what about all the stuff in it? Matter. How do you build things like electrons and quarks, the particles that make up you, me, and literally everything else, out of just pixels of space? The theory needs a way to do that, and right now, it's drawing a blank. And this gets really specific when you look at particles called fermions. These are the fundamental building blocks of matter. Think electrons. They have this really specific quirky property called half-integer spin. And so far, not a single one of these pixel theories has been able to show how you can glue space-time pixels together to make something that acts like a fermion. That is a massive, massive problem. Okay, so the problem of matter is a big one. Let's move on to the second unanswered question. If these pixels really are the fundamental atoms of reality, then they must have their own rules, right? Like, what are their properties? What can they do? What can't they do? What's written in their instruction manual? Well, here's the kicker. We have no idea. The current theories haven't defined any of these fundamental properties. It would be like trying to build a computer, but you don't know what a 1 or a 0 is, or what rules they follow. It's a huge, gaping hole right at the center of the theory. All right, on to number 3, and this one is a bit of a logical trap. Okay, so what are the pixels themselves made of? It sounds like a simple question, but it's a huge problem. See, if they're made of something else, then they aren't the most fundamental thing after all, and you just have to ask the same question about the new thing. It's an infinite loop. But if they're not made of anything, then how do they even exist or have properties? It's a real head-scratcher. This brings us to question number 4, which is all about the gaps. Right. If reality is a grid of pixels, what's in between them? Is it nothing? Just empty void? If so, how does anything move? How does an electron, for example, get from one pixel to the one next to it? Does it just teleport across the gap? It makes explaining motion and interaction really, really tricky. And that leads us to our 5th and final big question for this theory. How do all these separate little pixels connect to form the universe? The huge interconnected cosmos we see all around us. They can't just be floating there all alone. They have to talk to each other. They have to link up. They have to interact. But how? The theory doesn't tell us how these fundamental Legos of reality actually snap together. So with 5 huge fundamental questions on the table and no good answers, you can see why many physicists are thinking, maybe we're on the wrong track. What if this whole pixel idea is just a concept we made up? What if the alternative is true? What if reality is actually completely smooth and seamless? So this really paints 2 completely different pictures of the universe. In one corner, you've got the pixel theory, which says reality is built from the ground up out of all these tiny separate units. And in the other corner, you have the continuous fabric idea, which says, nope, reality is just one single, unbroken, seamless thing.
This alternative view has this really elegant way of looking at it with 2 layers. So layer 1 is reality as it actually is. This single, continuous, elastic fabric that exists in 3 dimensions plus time. It's whole and undivided. Then you have layer 2. That's our view of it. That's where we come in with our rulers and our clocks and we draw lines on it. We create things like meters and seconds so that we can measure it and make sense of it.
And this quote really nails it. Everything we've built, all of our science, is based on this act of dividing things up in layer 2. Think about it. Our rulers, our clocks, they're all about chopping up reality into nice, neat little chunks we can count. The idea here is that those divisions, those pixels, don't actually exist in reality. They only exist in the way we choose to measure it. Okay, so we've looked at both sides of this huge cosmic debate. So where do we stand now? What's the bottom line in this search for what reality is made of? Well, this pretty much sums it up. The pixel theory with ideas like loop quantum gravity is super intriguing, but it's just incomplete. It can't answer those 5 huge questions we just went through. So until it can, the simpler idea, the continuous fabric theory, just seems like the more convincing position. It suggests reality is a seamless whole, and we're the ones who are creating the pixels when we try to measure it. And this leaves us with one last really deep thought to chew on. Is reality the thing that's actually out there, totally separate from us? Or is what we call reality just a reflection of what we're able to measure? It's a question that really makes you think, and it shows just how much more there is to discover. Thanks for diving into this with me.